Hey there, my name is Marley and welcome to my booktube channel. Today I'm going to be giving some book recommendations based on some TV shows and movies. I have done this a few times so far on my channel, so I definitely link those other videos below if you want to go check those out and catch up. I think I have about 12 recommendations here, so keep watching if you want some recs. And be sure to subscribe for more bookish videos from me. So let's start out with a fun little romance rec. So this is for if you like the movie How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. This is a rom-com about two people who are kind of working against each other and they end up falling in love, where the girl is trying to prove that she can like lose a guy in 10 days, but then the guy is trying to prove that he can stay in a relationship or something like that. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship, I feel. So for that reason, I would recommend You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. This is actually one of my favorite romance books and it definitely gives rom-com vibes. It was like the funniest romance I've ever read. It's about this couple who is actually engaged to be married, so it's a bit of a second chance romance in that regard, but they have started to like hate each other. Both of them don't really want to call off the wedding. They don't want to be the one to do it because then they'll have to pay for it. So they're both trying to kind of prank each other and do stuff to annoy each other so the other one will call off the wedding. So again, they're kind of working against each other, but they end up falling back in love, as you can imagine, and there's a lot of funny, sweet moments throughout. So that is what I would recommend for How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Next up, let's do a thriller. This is for if you liked the movie The Weekend Getaway with Leighton Meester. This was, I believe, on Netflix. This is a thriller movie where this girl is going to visit her friend in this other country. I think it was somewhere in Europe. I don't remember where. For this kind of girls' night out, but then the next morning her friend is missing and she cannot remember what happened the night before. She's trying to figure out what happened to her friend, who, kidnapped her or killed her. And also it's a little bit of an unreliable narrator situation because our main character doesn't really remember the night before, so she also could be suspicious. But it's kind of like a missing persons story trying to figure out what happened to the friend. Pretty good movie. I enjoyed it, but I think if you liked this movie, then you would like the book The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, and vice versa. If you like this book, you'd probably like that movie. This is about a woman who is coming to visit her brother at this apartment that he lives at in Paris, but when she gets there, she finds that he is missing. No one has seen him for a while, and basically she takes it upon herself to try to find out what happened to her brother. Similar situation to The Weekend Getaway. She's also in like a new city, meeting all these new people that live in the apartment building, and all of them are kind of suspects as we're getting flashbacks to different experiences that all of these characters had with the girl's brother. This was a pretty twisty, messed up thriller, and I think they kind of both have similar vibes. Next up is for if you like the movie Labyrinth, which is actually one of my favorite movies of all time. It stars David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly. It's about this teenage girl who is forced to babysit her brother when she doesn't want to. So she ends up wishing that the Goblin King would come and take him away. The Goblin King is like someone from like a fantasy play that she reads. She's really into like fantasy. So the Goblin King actually does come and take her brother away, and then she has to go through this whole labyrinth to find him because she doesn't actually want her brother to be kidnapped. She just said that obviously when she was upset. So it's this whole journey of her going through this labyrinth, this big maze, trying to save her brother before he gets turned into a goblin, which is very similar to the book called Caraval by Stephanie Garber. No wonder this was one of my favorite books that I read last year. This is a YA fantasy following a sibling relationship between these two sisters. Essentially, one of the sisters gets kidnapped to be a part of this game called Caraval. It's like this magical competition and there's a different prize each time. It's put on by this mysterious figure called Legend. So he could be like the equivalent of the Goblin King. Obviously the sister being kidnapped is similar to Toby being kidnapped in Labyrinth. And our main character Scarlet has to go through this competition, through these different trials and such to try and win Caraval and save her sister. Both of them have these fun, kind of whimsical, out of this world vibes. They have that sibling relationship and have this like dark figure in the background that's just kind of like manipulating the situation. So I think if you like Labyrinth, you would like this. Now there's a bit of a two-parter here. I think if you liked the movie Moulin Rouge, which is like a musical, I think taking place in Paris, following these people who are putting on this like musical production. There's this tragic kind of star-crossed lovers romance. And if you liked the movie The Prestige, which is very different vibes, but it deals with two magicians who are like competing against each other, trying to be the better magician, and like there's dark twists and turns and stuff. I think if you liked either or both of those movies, then you would probably like Where Dreams Descend. This is a YA fantasy again, but it deals with two magicians and like star-crossed lovers, giving the vibes of Moulin Rouge, but also there's a competition for magicians, which is giving The Prestige vibes. So I think it's a pretty good mixture of the two. Specifically, we're following a magician named Kalia. She's a female magician, which is not really seen too much, and she escapes from this bad situation she's in to enter this competition. And in the meantime, she meets this other magician named DeMarco, and they have this romance. Meanwhile, there is another character that Kalia ran away from named Jack, who is kind of trying to lure her back. So pretty fun time there. All right, next recommendation I came up with when I watched the movie New Mutants. This movie I feel like is underrated. People don't really talk about it, but I thought it was actually pretty fun. We're following a few different teenagers who are in this like, I think it's some sort of like psychiatric hospital or like something to like help these teens, but we find out they actually have like superpowers and they are mutants, if you are familiar with X-Men and mutants and everything. But it was just kind of like a YA fun version of X-Men with all these teenagers in this place together. There's some like romances and different dynamics, but then also they have these powers. It kind of reminded me of The Darkest Minds. It kind of reminds me of a lot of those fun classic YA fantasy books, but particularly The Darkest Minds, which follows a bunch of teenagers who are put into these camps. Not just teenagers, but also kids, sorry, because they have developed all of these different powers. There's like, I think 5 different types of powers that you can have, and they're categorized by color, so like orange, red, blue, stuff like that. Our main character is in one of these camps and has to kind of try to survive and try to escape. And she does actually manage to escape and teams up with a couple other kids who are on the run. Basically, adults and the government are trying to catch all the kids and round them up to keep them controlled. This is actually a series, and it was one of my favorite YA fantasy series back in the day. So next up, it's for if you like the show True Blood, which is of course the popular vampire drama show that was on HBO for years. This is basically just like a big vampire soap opera. It deals with a lot of like romances, love triangles, stuff like that. And then there's vampires, there's fairies, there's werewolves, all that fun stuff. It's also known to have a lot of explicit scenes as well, mature subject matter for sure, like an adult version of Vampire Diaries. But it definitely does remind me of ACOTAR, the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J Maas. This is a fantasy series, a new adult fantasy series about fairies, and especially in the later books, they do get pretty explicit as well. There are definitely like love triangles and similar dynamics that you might see in True Blood. So I think if you liked the vibe of True Blood back in the day, you should definitely check out ACOTAR. And this is something probably most people already know, and I didn't even need to say. But moving on, next up is for if you like the show Never Have I Ever. This is a really fun young adult show that Mindy Kaling actually makes about this girl who is in high school and kind of just deals with a lot of typical teenage issues. But at the beginning of the show, she has recently lost her father, so she's also dealing with that, trying to be popular, liking the most popular boy in school, trying to be cool, balancing her Indian and American like heritage. And it's such a cute show in like a rom-com way. I really love, and honestly I'm obsessed with the main couple in the show, Davy and Ben, and they reminded me of the couple in I Kiss Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. This is more of a queer version. Obviously this is two girls falling in love, but it gave similar vibes because this is a story about our main character who's very similar to Davy, and that she's very, very good at school and like top of her class. And she has this competitive relationship with a girl named Shara Wheeler in her class, and they're both kind of vying to be valedictorian, similar to Davy and Ben in Never Have I Ever. So mainly if you like that love-hate rivals dynamic from Never Have I Ever, I think you would like I Kiss Shara Wheeler. This is also obviously young adult, deals with a lot of other like teen teenage drama that these characters are going through. There is a sapphic queer storyline in Never Ever Ever as well. So if you liked that, you definitely like this book too. This one also deals with like some religious issues too when it comes to being queer, but a really cute story that I would definitely recommend. Next up, we're going back into the thriller spooky area with the show You. Obviously, this was adapted from a book to begin with, but I absolutely love this show. It's following a like psychopath or like sociopath, killer, stalker named Joe. And throughout the seasons, we see him stalking these different women and killing people and just kind of being a criminal. But it's unique because we're actually following from his point of view, which is pretty different from most stories. Normally you are following the good guy rather than the bad guy. Something that kind of reminded me of that was Never Saw Me Coming by Vera Kurian. I don't see people talk about this book too much, but it was a pretty good thriller. The reason it reminded me of You is that we are following a bunch of teenagers who are psychopaths, and they actually are all at this college because they have been entered into this study that the professors are doing at the college to study psychopathic behavior. And so I think they got like free tuition or a discount or something to go to the school. But it's very unique because we're following these people who struggle with like having empathy and feeling emotions properly. And there is a killer on the loose, which is a little more similar to the, I guess, last season of You, which was like a murder mystery. So of course all our main characters are suspects as they are psychopaths. So we are trying to find out who is doing these killings on campus, and it is pretty fun. Next up is for if you like the movie Do Revenge, which is a really fun young adult movie that came out on Netflix in the last year. It's basically about these two girls who become friends and team up to try and get revenge on the people who have wronged them in high school. I think it's the one girl's like ex-boyfriend and the other girl's it's like her ex-girlfriend or something like that. And this recommendation I have is kind of more thrillery, but I still think if you like the movie Do Revenge, then you would probably like the book People Like Us. This takes place at a boarding school, so it has that same school setting, and we're following a group of girls who are all very cliquey, similar to Do Revenge, but there's been a murder. And our main character is a suspect, kind of her friends are suspects. Another thing that I think they had in common was, again, having that sapphic romance. In Do Revenge, one of our main characters is queer and has a romance, and same within this story. But mostly I think if you just like reading about like the cliquey high school mean girl kind of drama, I think you would like both of these. We have another like multiple recommendation thing here. So this is for if you like the show The Midnight Club, which honestly I didn't love this show that much, but this is for if you liked the fact that it follows a group of kids that are all into like scary stories and sharing scary stories with each other, which that in itself was a cool concept. And for if you like the movie Scream or other slashers like that are very fun and it's like a whodunit, you're trying to figure out who the killer is. Then I would recommend the Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavsky. This was my favorite book I read last year. It's the best YA thriller I have ever read. It's about a main character who joins this secret club at her school called the Mary Shelley Club, and basically they are all really big horror movie fans, which is why I mentioned The Midnight Club earlier. And basically they all try and recreate these scary movie moments in real life. I forget what they call them. I think they call them scare tests or fear tests, and basically they recreate scary moments in real life to prank and scare their classmates. Then these pranks start going wrong and people actually start dying and getting murdered by some mysterious figure. So that's why it's also giving the Scream vibes as well. And the fact that it's like pretty meta like Scream, where they mention other horror movies and slasher movies and stuff like that. So this is such a good book, especially if you like Scream and The Midnight Club and just all those types of themes that I mentioned. Yes. Getting down to our final two. So this is for if you liked the movie Fresh. This was about a girl who gets abducted by this man, and we see her being captured and the torture that she kind of goes through and how she is trying to escape. It does deal with cannibalism, as this man is selling the girls, not just her, but other women's like body parts to cannibals. crazy. Yeah. But if you liked this concept, I think you would like The Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchison. This one was pretty graphic, but I assume if you liked Fresh, you're kind of into that. But this is about a man who calls himself the gardener, and he basically abducts young girls and keeps them all captured, similar to like in Fresh. There's no cannibalism, but there is a lot of like assault and abuse that these girls deal with. But it's really creepy because this guy like considers them all his butterflies and like tattoos them as different butterflies, gives them new names, and then when they die, he like keeps them all like as his butterflies. Okay, so I think if you like this really messed up concept in both of these, then you would like the other one, and vice versa. If you like The Butterfly Garden, check out the movie Fresh. Definitely disturbing, but definitely a good book. And last one, this is one that I feel like a lot of people probably have already made this connection, but it's for if you liked the movie Interview with a Vampire, which is already based on a book. But in the movie, we have Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, who are two vampires. We see their lives together over like many years and the weird kind of relationship that they have. And so I think if you like that, you would like the book A Dowry of Blood, which is by S.T. Gibson. And this is about two vampires again and just seeing their life throughout many years. It's actually from the wife of Dracula's point of view. So we are seeing that journey as he turns her, and then their life together and the different people that end up coming into their relationship. Kind of like in Interview with the Vampire, we have Claudia that comes in and stuff like that. We're following the relationship with this woman and Dracula as immortals and all the complexities of like being a vampire and the relationship and these other people that enter the relationship as well. This was just such an amazing book. I absolutely loved it. I gave it 5 stars. So it was just so beautiful, and I would honestly recommend it to everyone, but especially if you liked the story and the vibes of Interview with a Vampire. So those are all the recs I have today. Hopefully you got a new recommendation from this. Definitely let me know if you have any suggestions of recommendations for any of the movies or TV shows I mentioned. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. Like this video, give it a comment, and follow me on my Goodreads account to see what I'm reading throughout the month. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!